So, namaste. Welcome to Satsang this evening. And the reason and purpose for gathering like this is to come to experience the truth of our being and to not only experience it, but to come to live as that, which is just a generally much more pleasant way to spend your life. And so, in order to come to experience what we really are, I really want to continue with what we were talking about last satsang, which is recognizing the self by all of its different names that it's called. We were looking at noticing the contextual field, which is here and present all the time. It's just another name for that which is invisible, intangible, everywhere, infinite, and doesn't come and doesn't go, doesn't appear or disappear. So I'm going to call it contextual field, or probably just field tonight, but it really is your own self, your own essential nature. It's really not so much the words that we use, it's really to come to an experience. And I just wanted to, we're just going to go into noticing the field, and then we'll do a little self-inquiry to see what we can find out about this field and what we can come to realize within ourselves, because it's only really by directly experiencing consciousness, silence, stillness, the field, the self, the noumenon, whatever we're calling it, awareness, all of that, that we will actually notice a change in our day-to-day existence. It's only by experiencing it rather than only thinking about it that we'll actually be able to shift our identity over from thinking we are a separate being, moving towards awakening, trying to get to some end point, to a recognition that I actually already am the field, the silent, invisible field that is in the background of everything. And our perspective changes completely, that we're not affected by anything that's going on inside the field when we know that we are the field. So let's dive into that right now. And for the purpose of this, noticing the field is easier at first, or more helpful to keep your eyes open just for a while we're doing this. If you close your eyes, you're probably going to drift off into a nice deep state as I'm talking, which is fine. But it can also be a subtle way of avoiding actually recognizing what we really are. So you don't have to kind of force your eyes, you can blink and everything, but just to make sure that you're not drifting off. And I might remind you every now and again just to keep your eyes open. So right now, whichever room you're sitting in, wherever your body is sitting, wherever your body is located, there are other objects around you. There's your body and all the other objects in the room. And we were calling it zooming out, which seems to be quite popular. So we'll go with that. We were zooming out to notice the kind of periphery of our vision, that there is, in fact, along with all the objects here, my body being one of them, there is an invisible space, like just normal empty space, in which all these objects are appearing. So in this room I'm sitting in the room that you're sitting in, there will be a silent, invisible field, a spaciousness, a nothingness, just seems completely dull and uninteresting, except for the fact that the objects are appearing inside it. Our body, of course, being one of them, thoughts and emotions, external objects, furniture in the room. The room itself is appearing inside this field, contextual field. Contextual means the context in which everything is happening. And what's happening is the content. So everything that's coming and going inside the field is the content. The field itself is the context, the background in which everything is occurring. And this field has been here our entire existence, hasn't it? There's always been this spaciousness, which our body, our thoughts, everything was going on in. But our attention as human beings is trained to go to the content of the field. So objects coming and going, appearing and disappearing inside the field. And of course, objects, subtle objects in here, thoughts, get a lot of attention, and we're just switching that habit, a fundamental habit of paying attention to the content, what's going on inside the field, what's moving and changing, and bringing attention, zooming it out to notice there's a kind of spaciousness in which all this is occurring. So checking your eyes are still open, that you're not drifting off. You can drift off later, I promise, but you might miss something vital if you're not conscious to hear this and recognize this and ask yourself the questions we're going to go through in a moment. So just noticing the field and recognizing that when we notice the field, there's just a kind of space, and it's not a thing, is it? I can't look at the field with my eyes and point to it. I can't say it's over there or it's over here. I could do that with objects. Can I say my body is here and over there is the sofa? But can I do that with the field? If I just zoom out again and notice the field, just the nothingness, the space in which the objects are appearing, can you say that it is in one place in particular? Or can you say it's over here or over there? Or does it not really fit into that kind of category? Is it more that the field, contextual field, is just kind of here and it doesn't have a location? It's not in one place. You couldn't pick up the field and move it over there, could you? It would just seem a little bit strange. How would you grasp it anyway? And if you happen to move out of the room you were sitting in, after we finish the satsang, wherever your body ends up, is there not also still, wherever your body would go, this silent field that's invisible? Can't see it with our eyes, but we know it's here. We can sense it, we can recognize it. And wherever your body goes for the rest of your life and wherever it's already been, we all have this same common experience of our body appearing inside the field. Our thoughts are inside the field, the content, our emotions, our experiences, all the sentient beings in the universe and all the insentient forms in the universe are all appearing inside this field. So where does this field end? You know it's here. Right now you can recognize there is some silent spaciousness in which all of these objects are appearing that has been very much in the background of my experience. And now noticing it, it's becoming more prominent. But where is it and where isn't it? Does it really come to an end? If you set off to walk from your house to my house, would there be, or fly or whatever, would there be a very long walk for some of you, but would there be any point in that journey where the field disappeared? Could it disappear? The objects are coming and going, aren't they, inside the field? Even this house that I'm sitting in won't be here forever. Even this body won't be here forever. Everything is coming and going inside the field. But which is here first? Can there be the content happening inside without the context, the field? And when we look, just checking these out, I'm not asking you to ask your mind, I'm asking you to look. Is there ever a time when the field would be absent? And can the field be here without any content in it? If something happened to this house I'm sitting in and it suddenly got demolished, touch wood, would it be the field, would it be gone? Or would there just be no objects inside the field? Would the field be changed at all in any way? Check this out with me right now. Is the field concerned at all about the objects coming and going inside? Is it trying to manage them and keep a hold of them? Or is it really just that the field is just kind of here, the silent, invisible space that's allowing all of these shapes to arise and fall away inside the field? So just again, zooming back out, if you've attention has got caught up on a thought or something, noticing the field again, just relaxing, noticing the field. And now you know that your body is inside the field, but can you find a separate you? Can you find yourself and the field? Is there really two when you look? There seems to be. It seems like I'm looking from this location outwards, from this place here. But can you actually find a separate being that's floating around inside the field when you look? Just checking that out now. Where is this separate being? Could we find it inside the field? When I looked, I just found the field. And when I look now, all I find is the field. There isn't any person inside the field. There seems to be, while there's eyes to look through and ears to listen through, it gives the illusion that I'm only here in this place. So again, just checking out the field, zooming back out, noticing the whole space that all of this is appearing in. Is that field going to come to an end? Is it changing? Does it have any quality that you can say it's like this or it's like that? Or is it really that we can only describe it in negation? It's invisible, it's intangible, it's completely silent, it's inaudible. You can't hear the field really in the same way that we can hear sound. We only know it's here. And if you want to go a little further into this inquiry with me, you are more than welcome. If you've checked out, if you can find a separate being and you can't find one, then what is left? There's the body and the field. What are you then? If we are, some part of us is permanent, we must be this field. It must be that this silent, invisible, intangible field is not just inert, empty space after all. It's not just absence of thingness. It must be intelligent. It must be the first thing, no thing that's here and constant. Is there anything that could damage the field? Is it going to be affected when the body expires? Is the field going to be any different at all when the body expires? Is it any different now that the body's here? Did anything happen to it when the body came? Again, just checking this out with me. And it's not so important with self-inquiry that we can answer these questions right now, although that may happen with some of them or all of them, depending on how far you're seeing us come. It's more important to be willing to look and experience. We're not thinking about the field. We're actually checking it out. So where is it and where isn't the field? Does it really stop at the edge of the room you're sitting in? Does it have any edges or boundaries like the room does? Is it inside the room, or is the room inside it? Or both? Or maybe neither of those are completely true. And just relaxing, we're just keeping our eyes open and checking out the field. You don't need to work hard. The questions, when you take these questions inside, they're doing some powerful work at breaking through illusion here. So again, just checking out the field. There is a silent space, which is still here since we first noticed it this evening. It's not shouting for our attention. It's not changing. Everything inside the field is changing, but the field itself is as it always was and will be. 100 million years from now, the field will be exactly the same. And 10,000 years ago, it was exactly the same. Does it have any sense of time, the field? And how is it interacting with your thoughts, the field? Is it trying to get rid of anything? Is it trying to grab anything? Is it doing this push-pull thing? So any of these questions that you feel you can't quite get a experiential answer to, your mind may have suggestions, but we really want to check out the field itself and get the direct experience. If any of these questions you can't answer, that's really just where you can take your practice, your inquiry. You can take this particular question and just stay with it. There isn't any hard work needed here. And just stay with this question over the next couple of days and weeks. Every now and again, checking into the field, noticing the field, asking this question, trying to see. And that very thing in itself is going to bring the answer to you in a profound knowing rather than a thinking about. So just taking a moment to notice the field. It's here, but we're not seeing it with our eyes because it's invisible. We're not touching it with our hands because it's intangible. It doesn't have any quality that we can recognize and compare with the mind. It's not big or small. It's not fat or thin, heavy or light. It's not here or there. It doesn't have anything that mind can compare and analyze. It isn't really like that. So last question then about the field. How are you recognizing it then? You know that there is some empty space, some not a thing yetness in which all these objects are appearing, including your own body. And if you're not using your eyes to see it, and if it can't be compared and analyzed by the mind, how are you actually recognizing it then? Again, just to ask this question is powerful. Something powerful is coming out of this inquiry. Something is happening inside as we're asking. How am I noticing that which is invisible, intangible, indescribable? Where am I noticing it from? Can an object inside the field recognize that the field never comes to an end? Can someone sitting in a location inside the field recognize that the field goes on forever? Is that really possible? So if you want to now, you can close your eyes, and if you want to close your eyes, you can recognize as you do so, has that field disappeared just because your eyes are closed? Do you still know, even with your eyes closed, that there is some spaciousness in which all of this is coming and going? some emptiness, some nothingness that is completely silent already, completely still. The spaciousness, the field hasn't moved since we noticed it. Things are moving around inside it. Thoughts are coming and going. These questions are appearing and disappearing. These words are coming and going inside the field. But has it moved? What has happened to it? And is it not equally perceptible, noticeable with your eyes closed or open? And when you see a thought appear in your mind, isn't it appearing inside that spaciousness, that field? Isn't it arising a thought inside some context? Isn't there some background space in which it's appearing? So if you don't like field or contextual field, it's okay. You can call it spaciousness, emptiness, whatever works for you is okay. Just all these different names pointing to the same thing, that which is in the background of our experience. We're always noticing the foreground, the coming and going, the phenomena, the objects. And something powerful happens when we start to bring attention to the silent space of our being, which is usually has been in the background. It's been always here. You cannot have a human body without the space for that body to appear in, can you? And that space has to be here first for something to manifest in it, to appear in it, and then disappear. So just if any one of these questions, or maybe a few of them, has really puzzled you or frustrated you a little bit, that is very normal. And it's okay. It was the same for me. It's just okay, this is the question then that I need to just to stay with. I don't need to work hard. I just stay with this question. Just come back to it once or twice a day in passing. Just sustain an interest in the answer. I don't have to do anything to get that answer. It will come as I stay interested in the question. So I hope you found that self-inquiry useful and helpful. If there's any part of it that you want to ask about, in a little while we can do that. You can feel free to ask for help with that. I'm absolutely here for that. Every single awakened being that has walked this planet has had to go through this same process. What the field was, how important it was, the fact that it was alive and sentient and not dull and inert. They had to figure this out too. They had to come to see this too. And when I started out trying to recognize the field, it wasn't clear to me that it wasn't appearing and disappearing. It took me a while to get that one. And there were other questions that I've said tonight that took me longer than others to confirm. And that's okay too. You'll have that experience also. Whichever these questions are interesting to you are the one to hold on to and to really take inside your inquiry. Something powerful will come out of that. And then with repeated looking, we come to see that we are the field, that I am not at all someone inside the field, although it seems to be there. There seems to be a someone. Even here now, there seems to be a someone talking. And the field, there seems to be two. There seems to be an individual, unique expression of the field appearing as a human being. And that is not a mistake. It's the field expressing itself. It's the field experiencing itself. It is the field playing with recognizing itself, becoming ever more self-aware in the shapes that it's taking, until it finally takes the shape of a human being where it can think about and discern and even compare seeming opposites of objects and subjective self, field and content, context and content. All you need to do to have this knowingness with such certainty and conviction is to keep looking like this, keep looking like this. And when you prove to yourself that you are the field, then you can't find a separate being in the field, you must be the field. Then you hold on to that. Anything that your mind says that contradicts that, you must examine. Is the field unworthy? Does the field need to wake up and realize the self? Is it on a path to awakening, or is it already there? Is it already free? Okay. So I have a couple, more than a couple of questions. I'll see if I can get through one or two that have been emailed in. If you do want to ask a question live on the session here, feel free to raise your hand and I'll come to you in a moment. Okay, so this first one says, and so it's a follow-up of a previous question. Dear Helen, following my last email to you about repressed memories and neglect and abuse as a young child are coming up at the moment. Unfortunately, the inquiry you suggested doesn't seem to help, as inquiries like, is it really true that ... just seem to be like squashing them back down, and spiritual bypassing. Could you say anything more about this, as I may have misunderstood you, and I'm wondering if it may be different for people who have experienced severe childhood trauma. Also, I wasn't clear about the journaling you suggested, as it seems to help journaling about the actual memories and how I felt then, but I think you were suggesting to journal in a different way. Many thanks and gratitude. So, even severe childhood trauma that we may have been through, it is a very acute form of fear, but it is nonetheless still fear and can be dealt with the same way through inquiry into what we really are, as we've just been doing, because the field cannot be hurt, cannot be damaged, cannot be, anything can only damage our body. It cannot damage us ever. And only the body will come to an end and is going to age and all of that, and not the field itself. As to the inquiry, asking, is it really true? I think we suggested that I'm not safe when it comes to fear. Fear is, the fear emotion is a reflection of a deeply held idea that I'm not safe. And it's not up here. We may feel quite safe up here. We may have a job and a good income and a stable life, but inside, somewhere inside, there is still this kind of small child that feels very, very unsafe. And when we're asking in contemplation, is it really true? We're actually really asking. And it's not the words per se, is it really true? It's the energy with which we're asking, is it really true I'm not safe? Because the fear is from the assumption that that is true. So we're asking with an openness to see, with a willingness to see, a curiosity. I'm actually really willing to find out. If I ask this question and I'm really not actually safe, at least I'll know, rather than guessing and thinking so. So the inquiry is not, actually it's the direct opposite. It is impossible to bypass when you're contemplating something openly and honestly. I really would like to know if this is true. And in fact, not questioning is bypassing, because I'm agreeing with the assumption that this thing is true and I'm not examining it. Therefore, I'll keep feeling the emotions coming up, The emotion will continue to come until I question the story that is the root, the belief that is the root behind it. So when you were a child, you can probably remember trying to take something apart just to see how it worked. There was a curiosity and innate innocence in that. I used to watch my dad take apart his car engine and put it back together again, over and over again, just because I was fascinated with how it worked. There was a curiosity about how this thing worked. And this is the kind of energy we want to come to contemplation with. Is this really true? Let me actually let me take apart this belief and look at it. Let me pick it apart with a spanner and see if it's actually so. With an open curiosity, looking right at it. Is it true for me? Is it true for me now? Has it ever been true for me that I'm not safe? And that openness is the direct antidote to believing and to bypassing. Believing is bypassing, actually. So we're actually wanting to find out. We're actually looking directly and find out if it's true rather than assuming. That's not bypassing. It's going to make it impossible to do that. As to the journaling, I would journal about your results, what insights and aha moments you're having from the contemplative questions behind it. It is traumatic events obviously leave us with a residue of fear, which may come also with a sense of overwhelm that I can't look at this because it's too strong. But you can just look at how much you can look at in that moment. Ask the question, is this really true? And when you feel that you've looked at enough of it, you stop. You can come back to it later when you're calmer. You don't have to get it all done in one go. So I hope that helps to kind of, it's the energy behind the words. Why are you asking the question? Why are you asking this question? And the self, the field, it's kind of open, isn't it? It's open, and it isn't shying away from anything. Everything is equally present within it. And that's kind of the energy that we're coming. Another word for the field is also love, so we're loving this belief. We're really wanting to see it and see if it's true. Okay. So we'll do this second one. Hi, Helen. Thank you for pointing to what many overlook. Your effort is much appreciated. I am following up on your July 1st video post, as you suggested. It is important for me to realize awareness is not somewhere around the body. I work hard at it, but mind comes up with reasonable obstacles. For example, awareness is just another thought emerging from my physical brain. They are the same because thoughts and awareness both are not physical. Only when I'm conscious can I have thoughts and awareness, so they both seem a bit limited. I can only experience sensations in and around my body regardless of the source location. For example, if I hear a sound of an explosion, I hear a sound of an explosion in my head, even if the source of the explosion was many miles away. I cannot experience most sensations originating from sources far away. What can I look to so I can experience awareness more clearly? Whatever I have been doing is not helping. Okay, so you said here that when you try to find out what awareness is and isn't, that your mind is coming up with obstacles, okay? And your experience is that you can't have awareness when you're not conscious. That's the experience that you're having right now. So I want you to stop referencing your mind to tell you about awareness. These obstacles that mind gives you, so the thought you've put here, thoughts and awareness both are not physical. That thought is seen from awareness. Awareness is not a thought. Which must be here first, awareness or the thought? Would you even know there's a thought present if there wasn't awareness here to see it? So if you don't reference mind, mind can't tell you anything about the awareness. It'll try to tell you everything about the awareness. But when you have a thought, there's awareness of it, isn't there? Something is noticing that thought. If you simply shift attention to what is noticing, then you're going to get more clear understanding. And maybe the field or the silence or the nothingness or the sense of here-ness or this now moment is a better way in for you if you find that you're stuck with awareness. It might just be that that's not one of your doorways. It took me a while to realize that reading Nisargadatta Maharaj for 6 years and trying to find out what I am was not going to work for me. It just wasn't my way in. Afterwards, I realized what it was when I noticed silence and then the field and all of that. Maybe awareness isn't your doorway. Pick another doorway. But most of all, mind is going to give you reasons why you can't do this. Right now, in the room that you're sitting in, there is this field, isn't there, that we've just noticed. Is it an object? And you can answer that without using your mind. There's a looking and a checking of the field, isn't there? When I ask you that question, is it an object? Is it a thing or is it not a thing? Does it have the qualities of the thing, a field, the field itself? So checking this out, mind is going to tell you, it's going to give you feedback and progress or lack thereof, thoughts about that. It's going to give you thoughts about the field, about the awareness. Keeping your attention on the awareness itself. Noticing if I'm looking at thoughts, my attention has moved. My attention has subtly gone to thoughts about awareness. And I'm only going to get the answers by bringing, but when I'm aware of those obstacles, those thoughts, let me come back to the awareness. Something knows what your mind is saying. Bring your attention back as many times as you need to till you start to see. Asking mind to describe awareness and to recognize awareness is like trying to ask somebody sitting, if we had a 70,000 seater stadium, some event, some sporting event maybe, and there was one guy sitting at the front row, right down on the touchline, he's sitting there. It's like asking that guy to tell us what it looks like from the helicopter above. How can he possibly see what it looks like from up there? How can one thing inside the field recognize the field itself? So my suggestion would be switch to another doorway, and there is so many of them. Okay. So if anybody would like to, I have more questions there, but if anybody wants to ask anything or share their experience, feel free to raise your hand. We've got some time to take some questions. Okay. Otherwise, I will crack on with the next question. Okay, so we'll go with this one. This one just says, I would like to ask a question. Why did God give us the ability to even think of being separate? Were we not already in Christ's consciousness and complete? So you could say that the ability to think about being, think of being a separate being, all this imagination comes with the capacity to think. And as we were saying, yes, you're absolutely correct. We were already in Christ consciousness, as Christ consciousness and complete. The field is the field right now, isn't it? It's perfect, it's complete, it's never changing. It's not going to be any different ever. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't want anything. It's not going to, it's not on a journey to wake up and recognize itself, paradoxically. And then when it takes the shape of a human being, it has the capacity to think about itself, and it begins to ask, where did I come from? What is all of this? What happens when I die? And all of this questions come. So you could say that the field is playing with these shapes, and in these shapes, these forms, as we can see through the Darwinian evolution, these forms are becoming ever more complex, sentient in the appearance at least, and able to perceive their surroundings. So we can be much more self-aware as a human being than as a beetle or something like that. We can be much more aware than a cat. A cat is just having an experience of being a cat. So you could say that this is happening because the self, the Christ consciousness, wants to understand itself in the level of manifestation. As the unmanifest field, it doesn't care. It doesn't need even that, does it? It doesn't want to, doesn't need anything. It's not looking for self-awareness. In the manifestation, it's on this never-ending journey to understand and experience itself ever through ever more complex forms and experiences. With the ability to think comes the seeming opposites. With a manifestation of a form comes seeming opposites of form and formlessness. So this is complexity all comes once a human being appears. You could say there is no reason for it doing it. You could say it's doing it for the joy of it, although it's not fun when it's caught up in thoughts of being a separate being. You could say it's doing it to explore itself, to understand itself. All of those reasons, and none of them really. You could say it doesn't really have any reason for doing it. There's no purpose behind it in a way. So it's not one of those questions I can give you a definitive answer to, but hopefully that helps to some extent. Okay, so would anyone like to, oh yeah, we have a hand up. Sorry, I missed that one. Andy, when you're ready.
Hi, Helen. Thank you for what you do here.
Thank you.
My question is about what you've been talking about. So I may be asking you to repeat what you said again, but
that's okay. That's okay.
I think what I heard you say is the field is synonymous with awareness, but there's also you also referred to it as a separate doorway. So it may not be exactly the same thing. So if you could help me understand, the difference between them, and then when I really like the reference to the doorway, it's very helpful. And so I'm going doorway to what? I think you're saying doorway to the self with a capital S, or
yeah. If you think of the name as a doorway, for me, I think as I explained, I listened to teachers talk about the sense of I am, and I just couldn't figure out what that was. I couldn't get an experience of it. I couldn't understand that experientially. I could think about it. So later on afterwards, when I'd recognized my real self, it became clear what the I am was, that it was the self, that there's all these names. And so the names of the doorways really, for me, looking for the self isn't it's invisible, it's intangible, as we're saying, but it appears to each one of us in a different way. So some beings are going to find it easier to recognize the silence that's constant in the background and unchanging underneath these words, around these words. Some beings are going to find it easier to recognize awareness. I can't have a thought without being aware of it, without awareness being there. Some beings are going to recognize there's consciousness here, and that my attention has gone to what I'm conscious of, Now I'm recognizing there is consciousness here. So what became clear to me when I started looking myself and started helping others is there isn't any one size fits all name for the self that everyone can sort of experientially go to and go, yeah, now I've seen it. And that's why there's all these different names that teachers use, you know, from self to God. You know, for me, the word noumenon worked, which is just that which isn't a phenomenon. You know, that helped me, that word too. So it's finding out which one works for you, which word seems that they're just words and they're all pointing the doorways into the same room. If we look at the self as a room, kind of, and whichever doorway unlocks for you is important to find that one, isn't it, that works, that gives you an experience of it. So the names really are just not so important, but they just helped me to kind of find a way into the self experientially.
Okay.
Do you have a sense that one of them really resonates with you?
Yeah, just the idea of using the field as a doorway to experience this, you know, the self or the I am was a I like that, resonated with that.
Good,
So
good.
thank you.
And if you really find a way in experientially through one doorway, eventually they all unlock. You know, the field is silent. It's not making any noise, is it? It's absolute silence. It's also stillness. It's not moving around. It's just here. It is, you know, so it become clearer and clearer whichever way you find in first. You know, it's just important to make sure you can experience it, because that changes you, doesn't it, when you start to really experience it inside.
Yeah, I
Good.
also just wanted to comment that I'd never heard any teacher talk about zooming out, and since you brought this concept, it has been so helpful to just go about my day and say, okay, let's zoom out right now, and I can do it at any time, and I just love that.
Yeah.
It's a great tool. So thank you very much for bringing
Good,
that.
good. I'm kind of passionate about making it as simple as possible, so it's good to hear that feedback. So thank you very much, and good to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, lovely. Angie, when you're ready.
Hello, Helen. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Good to talk to you. I was going to say good to see you, but it's been a long day.
I just discovered you a few days ago on YouTube, and I feel as I've hit the Satsang jackpot. I'm absolutely, totally resonate with what you're communicating. So thank you so much.
Good, good.
I want to ask you about very strong emotion. And in my case, it's been a lifetime of fear. So much so that I'm now chronically ill and almost bedbound with what I think fear has done to this system. However, that's beside the point. So when I sit in the silence and the sensation of fear is extremely strong in the body, there's no narrative going on. It seems that there are two things going on. There is the silence and the spaciousness. And then there are the symptoms in the body, the clutching in the throat, the tummy, the sweating, the heart, and so on. So my understanding is that in order to fully experience the fear, I'm not focusing on the symptoms. I'm constantly bringing attention back to the stillness and the spaciousness. Is my understanding correct in that, and is my practice correct?
Yes, if I have a strong emotion, fear for me was just, I don't ever really remember a time when it wasn't there. You know, before it was just pretty constant. And the most direct thing we can do to work with it is to bring attention back to the self, whichever way, doorway, as we were just saying. If that's for you, that's stillness, silence, then bring attention back to that. If you find that you're doing that and the fear isn't beginning to diminish, then it might be that you need to contemplate, to look at the the fear itself, to question the story behind it. So what would, and it might seem a really strange thing to ask you, but if fear had a voice, if it had a mouth, if it was a person, what would it say? What would it want to say? When I looked at this, what's it trying to tell me? What idea is this fear showing me I still am buying into? Because when I thought I was a separate being, we have all these ideas about ourselves and the world and everything. And these ideas are no longer true. They're not true for the silence, the stillness, but we might still be holding on to them in some part of our consciousness. So when I really looked at the fear, because I sat with it, I came back to the silence over and over again. And in fact, the fear intensified for a little while. And I realized I had to look at the story behind it. And it was some real sense that I am not safe. I'm not safe. I'm in danger. And it seemed really weird because at the time I was an adult with, fairly successful outer life and no conscious reason to feel that way. But there was something really inside that really still felt that was kind of curled up in the fetal position, sort of bracing for impact. You might feel that, sense that inside you somewhere.
I'm being triggered all the time because of my life situation. And I've been very unwell for 9 years. And I live alone. My partner committed suicide. And there are a lot of physical symptoms, and they're quite alarming. So the triggers are not a mystery to me. And it takes very little for the fear to be triggered.
I'd like to suggest that we turn that on its head if you're open to looking at it.
Definitely go.
What if the physical symptoms and the fear, emotion, and the story were all kind of manifestation, different ways that this same thing is showing up? So I'm holding on to this story inside simply because I don't even know it's there until it starts really causing havoc with my life. I might have it just always been there. And if I don't question this story, it starts to show up as intense emotion. And if I still don't question because I don't know how yet, or something like that, then it begins to really mess with the energy systems of the body and begins to show up as some kind of physical condition. The body is energy too, and it's energy is supposed to flow, but some very low vibration, some very low energy, like I'm not safe, I'm in danger, is just going to slow down this fast flowing energy in the body. So it looks like illness. It looks like a lack of well-being in that. So it's not the physical symptoms that are triggering the fear, although it seems like that. It was really pivotal when I began to understand it's not my lack of money that's making me scared. It's my fear that's reflecting as lack of what I need to feel safe, showing up in this way. And for you, as the body, can you flip it on its head like that? And then the mind is never going to understand what I just said, so don't have to convince it. It's then you can see the most direct way to work with this is to look at the story. What's the story behind this, the belief behind? You can see if we were talking about shame, the idea behind shame would be something like, I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to awaken. Or if we were talking about anger might say something like, it's not fair, I'm blocked, I can't get what I want and need. And fear, in the same way, if we could personify it, what would it say? When you really look at that and ask it what it's trying to tell you, it'll come up with some story. And then you can take that into contemplation. On my YouTube channel, there is a playlist called Core Teachings. I suggest looking at the contemplation one, how to work with the question, is this really true that I'm not safe? Because if we don't challenge this idea We're going to continue to experience it as the emotion and as the physical reflection in our body. It's probably showing up in a lot of ways in our lives as well, but this one particular way in the body is very prominent for you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes.
There was a couple of beliefs, this fear as well, fear and anger I had to really look at, because something was still insisting, even though I'd recognized the silence. This belief just stuck out even more then. It was out of alignment with what I've seen myself to be. So it shouts at you like, come on, look at me here, and let's resolve this.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, that's a whole other perspective. Bless your heart. Thank you so much.
It took me a long time to figure that out. So I'm glad I hopefully can save you some time with that.
Well, I'm so glad you did, because your journey is now helping. Oh, I can't tell you. I've been alone for so long, very solitary, and just working on myself and going within. So this is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Good. Look forward to hearing the results of that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take Zoe and then we'll finish for this evening. So whenever you're ready, Zoe.
Thank you, Helen. And I just want to say to Angie, my experience has been this is the ultimate satsang jackpot. Absolutely. Oh my God. Since I found Helen back in December, and so many things have shifted. If anybody hasn't taken Dissolving the Ego, highly recommend that. Anyway, I'm so sorry I missed the first part. I've got a schedule all figured out of all the things, and
okay. That's why we record it anyway, isn't it?
Fantastic.
We've all got busy lives.
So, yeah, I was on the Awakening Together yesterday and talking with you about that line. My thoughts are meaningless, and afterwards I was contemplating that as well, and as you said, can you see that, well, maybe these thoughts aren't even yours, they're just floating around. So that recognition came, and then almost immediately after, it was like, well, this body isn't even mine, and the ailments in it aren't even mine. And Angie, I so relate to you. I've created, Helen has helped me with all this stuff. It's just been amazing. Has answered so many questions. So anyway, would you talk a couple of minutes about that? It's like, so this is not my body. So I could say, I'm not anybody, and yet I could also say I'm everybody.
Yeah. In each in each human body, the self is having an experience of looking from that perspective, isn't it? It's looking from so for this body here that's talking now, it looks like, feels like, seems like this is the only place I am, and it still will seem like that afterwards. But as you begin to recognize the field, as we're calling it tonight, or the self, it doesn't have any specialness of any objects in it. It's not saying that's my body and that one's not my body, and there's just bodies in the field, isn't there? Or even Trua said the field is appearing as these bodies, taking the shape of these bodies. And it changed everything for me when I recognized that it's just a body. Not that I'm going to not care for it or anything, but there a lot of fear comes because it's my body. But that thought that this is my body is happening inside the body and isn't possible before the body comes. So it's not original to me, this capacity to identify as one body only isn't even my issue. Is this an issue for the field? Is the silence trying to disidentify with thoughts? It's not, is it? It's just already free. So it's a fundamental shift, that, isn't it? This is just a body, and I'm getting to look through it and use it and experience it and enjoy it and have the best experience possible. Now I'm seeing that I'm going to be completely unchanged when the body's gone. just as I am completely unchanged, now it's here. Can you get a stronger sense of that now? Good, good, good. Lovely. Glad to hear you're breaking through with stuff. It's wonderful. Okay, so we will leave it there for this evening. Thank you to you all for your participation. Namaste.